What's up, guys? This is Brave, and I am here to do a review of the Wendy Williams movie. It has aired on Lifetime, and baby, Wendy has been through a lot. After seeing this movie, I have so much more respect for her, and I just want Wendy to win after that. I can say that I enjoyed watching this movie. It was not terrible like most of the other biopics that, we get from Lifetime. Well, not all of them have been bad because the Clark sisters was good as well. I feel like this movie should have been a two-parter or, just a bit longer. Kind of like how the New Edition movie was, just because, her career is like a 30-year career, so I feel like it was a bit rushed at certain points, but my God, did we get to some of the meat and potatoes. Let's go ahead and start from the beginning of the movie. So we start the movie off with Wendy getting ready for a show of her talk show, and she's talking, and then she ends up breaking the fourth wall, and then that is when the movie goes back to when she was 11 years old. So Wendy was a chubby girl, and her parents would always bring up how she needed to lose weight. She ended up trying to squeeze into like a dress, but I mean, she got in there, but she was just growing up, and like, as a kid, like, you don't know how your body is going to change as you grow up, because she was in like that awkward stage, and I feel like 11, 12, 13, that's when your body really starts to change, and sometimes you get taller, you gain weight, you start to grow boobs, like, it's a whole process. So she ends up going to this party, and they play musical chairs. She won, but she did break the chair. And when she got home, we realized that as a child, she was obsessed with celebrities. So it's like, it was always meant for her to do what she does now. So Wendy had a bedwetting problem as a child, and her mom thought it was because of her weight. But Wendy said that it was because of anxiety. But Wendy always knew that she wanted to do radio. She would pretend like she had her own radio show when she was a kid. So she really is a person who followed her dreams. So we fast forward to 1987. She starts working at a radio station in DC. We also see that Wendy has her cocaine problem. She's literally doing coke in the bathroom at work. I'm like, girl, did you never got caught? No? Okay, I guess. So she does this interview with someone by the name of Ricky Tony. This is a made-up name, but the incidents that happened within this scene were real. So she does this interview. He's flirting with her. He invites her to a party, and he's like, oh, but I have to stop back in my hotel first. So she goes to his hotel. He ends up raping her. She's like, back then, they called that date rape. She tried to tell him to stop, but he didn't listen. I felt so bad for her in that moment. She did not deserve that at all. So after this happened, she ended up really like pushing herself into work. Like, she stayed focused. She had her dreams and her sights on New York. She hung up like New York posters. She would send out tapes, to radio stations in New York to see if they wanted to add her into their station. She just really became super focused. She also got tested for AIDS, because at that point, AIDS was a very huge thing. And, she just wanted to make sure she didn't, catch anything after being raped, which is, oh my gosh, so terrible. So we do get a scene of her trying to call her parents, and, her dad picks up, but he just wasn't like a comforting, type of dad, which really sucks because sometimes, our parents, they give us tough love, or like her dad was like, oh, well, if it's hard out there, you should just come back home. And sometimes, you just want your parents to just be like, oh my gosh, it's going to be okay, keep going. But, parents make mistakes. Sometimes they don't know. So, can't really hold that against them sometimes. One thing that I noticed about that scene, though, is I'm like, wait, is she smoking crack? And then we see her doing coke while she's partying. One thing she said, though, was that she was never late for work. And next thing you know, she made her way to New York. So she would work in D.C. on the weekday, and then she would go and work in New York on the weekends. Her coke habit continued to increase. But, she worked super hard when she was in New York. And the radio station, even though she worked hard, the radio station still fired her. And one of the guys was like, well, you need to go get married and you need to have some babies. But did Wendy do that? No. She ended up, getting another job. She said that she has never been unemployed for more than 2 weeks in her entire adult life. That's amazing because I know plenty of people who have, had those moments where they lose a job and it takes some time to find a new job. Hell, most people are going through that right now because of the pandemic. So after that, she gets a job at a pop station. So she does that at night, but in the daytime she would sit in the lobby of another a radio station because she wanted to eventually meet with Carol Ford. So she would sit there, read the tabloids until one time a guy comes out and he's like, hey, you're Wendy Williams. I need to fill in today. And when she gets in there, she starts talking about some celebrity gossip. And the guy comes in and he's like, what are you doing? She's like, people want to know these type of things. And he's like, wow, that's revolutionary. Because at the time, radio stations, they would just, play the music, introduce the tracks. And if they had a celebrity interview the person, not tell the celebrity's business. So after that, she ends up getting a permanent position there. She got a morning show. She becomes super popular. And I mean, people would tell her all the business, like all the tea. Like regular people. So if they saw her out, they're like, oh, Wendy, let me tell you this story. Let me tell you that story. So we do see her. She's out partying. And she ends up catching the eye of Eric B., who is a hip-hop artist who used to roll with Rakim. So they start dating. He ended up taking her car one day, and he almost made her late for work because he brought it to her like super late. So she ended up renting a car for him, but he never returned the car. So he was probably just rolling around in it like as if she bought the car. Their relationship was terrible. He ruined her credit, and he ended up getting her pregnant, but she got an abortion because at that point their relationship was over, and she saw how he was. Who would want him as a baby daddy that she would have to deal with? Nobody. So next thing you know, we see Wendy. She's in the club, and Kevin, he ends up sending his boy over there to let her know that he was interested, and he gives her a set of matches with his phone number in it. She completely skipped over her first marriage because she said it wasn't important and the guy was basically a rebound. I felt bad for whoever the first guy was that she married. So, Hot 97 ended up buying the radio station that she was at, and so she ends up giving Kevin a call randomly, and he picks her up, and they had drinks in his car. They started dating, and Kevin kind of became her everything. She opened up to him about her weight issues, and how she had an eating disorder in high school. She let him know that she decided to get a breast implants as well as liposuction. He was supportive of her. He's like, if that's what you want to do, go ahead. But I do love you the way that you are. I mean, honestly, the way Kevin was, portrayed in the beginning, like, he seemed to be a really great guy, and then things just went really bad. So, Wendy got her surgery, and, she came back and she's sashaying around the office with her new boobs and her liposuction, so her body probably looked great. There's one part where she's like talking about her implants and stuff on the air, and then she's told that she has to take a break from her show for like 2 weeks because she can't talk about stuff like that. She goes down to the lobby, and the group total from back in the day, I think they were signed to Bad Boy. They're like waiting on her outside. I fell out laughing because I'm like, wait. So you mean to tell me they were going to like jump you, girl? Oh my gosh, like that's crazy. So we learned that Kevin knew of her coke habit, and he never pressured her to stop, even though he didn't support it at all. She says that it took her 4 days to quit cold turkey, and he asked her to marry him. Then at some other point, she got suspended at work because Puff Daddy at the time, now he goes by Diddy, he was blowing up the phone with the radio station and probably making all types of threats. So her contract said that she couldn't work in New York, but she had to work like within a certain amount of miles. Well, she could work about a certain amount of miles away from New York. So she ended up going to Philly. At this point in the movie, this is probably like one of the most heartbreaking scenes of the movie, because she finds out that she's pregnant, and unfortunately she has a miscarriage, and then she gets pregnant again, and then she lost her baby at 5 months, and then she got pregnant again, and she lost another baby that was stillborn, and at that point, because she was so far along, she actually had to deliver that baby, and it was a little girl. After that, her and Kevin got married, and she found a new doctor who let her know that she could possibly have a baby. She just had to be on bed rest. So she got pregnant again, and this time she stayed home. She recorded the radio show from her house, and she had her son, Kevin. But we soon find out Big Kevin, was out here cheating. Wendy hired a private investigator and, just to see what he was up to. And he was definitely out here cheating. So she went to her doctor, got an STD test, as well as a 10-year IUD, because she did not want to have any more children with Kevin, especially with him out here cheating. And she didn't know where her marriage was going. So she figured she had to leave Philly and decided to go back to New York. So she's like, okay, great. This is us. We're getting our second chance. We're going to go back to New York. Everything should go back to, normal. She ends up, writing a book, and her book, it's a #1 seller. She gets not her TV show yet. She got her radio show, The Wendy Williams Experience, and, yeah, it blows up. We do see a clip of Kevin talking to another woman, and Wendy is like, who is he talking to? And she's talking to Charlamagne, and he's like, she is someone who's from South Carolina or whatever. And like, it was pretty much brushed off. So after that, we do see her and Kevin, they're sitting at home and they're talking, and someone is blowing up Kevin's phone. And I thought it was going to be another woman. Hell, I think Wendy probably thought it was another woman as well, but it happened to be a producer who wants to give Wendy a show. So Wendy is like, this same producer has been blowing up the phone at the radio station for 2 weeks. Kevin, this is your job to be handling things because you are my manager. I mean, I personally have my own feelings about when women let men, their husbands or boyfriends, whatever, become their manager. I feel like their career never reaches their maximum potential, and sometimes those men tend to hold those women back. That's just how I feel. Um, he so he basically says though that they have to give her her own show or there's no deal. So next thing you know, she gets her daytime talk show. So when the show first started, it was hard for him to book guests. So Wendy's like, let's just focus on the audience and then we'll just do hot topics. So the show took off, they get renewed. She thinks that her life is going great, but Kevin's behavior got a little bit reckless. So at one point they have a conversation about how he does everything for Wendy, and he even shows up to her job while they were having a meeting. And I mean, he acted an ass. He's like throwing stuff, and he slammed, threw a Rolex watch on her desk or whatever. And I mean, like, at this point, like, their relationship is going bad. It's going south real fast. So she ends up seeing one of Kevin's friends, Ryan, and she gets him to spill everything. She thought that Kevin was in LA. Really, he was in Miami with some woman. And Wendy ends up finding out that they have a house. She thought that he was, taking this woman to like the condo that he has, but no. They have a house that is in Jersey, not far from Wendy. So she goes over there to the house, and she has her phone out, and she's over here snapping pictures all through the window. I can't lie, I was cracking up. Like, the actress who played Wendy did such a good job, because I can totally see Wendy doing that. And the way the actor was snapping those pictures with that with the phone, I could not stop laughing. So after that, Wendy ends up spray painting the garage door, Wendy and Kevin forever. And I'm like, girl, no, it's not. So she ends up starting to drink a lot. And, at some point Kevin, he comes home and he's like, oh yeah, I know you went to my investment party. And she's like, no, I know about your other woman. It's like, come on, dude. So, like I said, she's been drinking super duper heavy because she's super stressed out about everything that's happening with her marriage and Kevin and all this stuff. So we see the infamous fall of her in that Statue of Liberty costume. And then Kevin, he convinced her to go to rehab. And in her voiceover, she's like, this is how a man convinces you that you are the problem. But really, all the things that he was doing was causing her to have all these problems. So she goes to rehab. They won't give her a phone. She ended up convincing one of the workers to give her tabloids and a phone. She realizes that she needs to go to New York to save her show because the show is on the verge of, being canceled. She finds out that Kevin got the mistress pregnant. It's just like so much is happening all at one time. So there's these other two guys who have to take her from work to a sober house that she's staying in. But she's like, I have to get back so I can save this show. So, we do hear her say in her little like talking voiceover that she had to take back the narrative of her own life, because at that point everything became about the drama with Kevin. So after that we have her talking on the show about how she's living in a sober house. We all have seen that clip. We see her in like an AA group meeting. Her parents show up and they're trying to support her. But at one clip, she's like, oh, I have a meeting to go to, but she has these two guys who have to take her to the sober house. So she's like, there's so much traffic. Why don't you guys take this street or that street? And they're like, no, we can't do that. She's like, well, I have to get to this meeting. They're like, no, you're not going to a meeting. You're going back to the sober house. So she literally broke free from that car and she ran to her meeting. And that meeting was super important because that was for her to handle all her business that separates her from Kevin, as well as get her divorce process started. So next thing you know, Kevin shows up to the sober house. She's like, well, it's after 10 p.m. I can't have visitors. And she's like, why is he here? She's yelling for security. And she's like, explaining to them, like, you wonder why I'm here. Like, he is the one who's killing me. He is emotionally and mentally killing me, which was true. Like, all that trauma that he put her through, he was definitely trying to take Wendy out. So they try to convince her, though, that this was a part of treatment. I'm like, ain't no way him showing up at 10 p.m., well, past 10 p.m. is a part of treatment. They were probably on his payroll. So, he's like, well, Wendy, we need to talk. And, she goes off on him. And he tells her that the mistress had a baby and that it's a girl. She lets him know they are getting a divorce. We see her meeting with her staff at the show. She tells them that Kevin is no longer a part of the show. And this movie ended with Wendy herself talking about how she has no regrets. And it took all the mistakes of her past to get her where she is. I think that this movie, again, could have been longer. I feel like the actress, who played Wendy, she did an amazing job. I feel like she definitely got a lot of Wendy's like mannerisms down. She did a great job overall. The wigs weren't bad because y'all know most of the time in a lot of movies, the wigs be real bad. But I think this was really good. The documentary after it, I can't lie, it was very emotional, but it was a good documentary. Like I said, I feel like this could have been so much longer. This should have been like at least a 2-night premiere, like 2 hours on one night and 2 hours on another, because I feel like her life, it deserved more. Unfortunately, Kevin, he was very controlling and he took over a lot of her life. So I feel like we got a lot of Kevin in this movie. But yeah, I hope that Wendy Williams has a lot more success in her future. And like they said, she changed the way radio is, which is very true. That pretty much wraps up my review. I hope you guys enjoyed the movie and enjoyed my review. Let me know what you guys thought about the movie in the comments below. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. And I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.